Hello everyone, welcome to the 80 Literary and Jury Charge. We're going to start off with a small selection from Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and this is on Don't Interrupt Others or Finish Their Sentences. Here we go, ready? It wasn't until a few years ago that I realized how often I interrupted others and or finished their sentences. Shortly thereafter, I also realized how destructive this habit was, not only to the respect and love I received from others, but also for the tremendous amount of energy it takes to try to be in two heads at once. Think about it for a moment. When you hurry someone along, interrupt someone, or finish his or her sentence, you have to keep track not only of your own thoughts, but of those of the person you are interrupting as well. This tendency, which by the way, is extremely common in busy people, encourages both parties to speed up their speech and their thinking. This, in turn, makes both people nervous, irritable, and annoyed. It's downright exhausting. It's also the cause of many arguments because if there's one thing almost everyone resents, it's someone who doesn't listen to what they are saying. And how can you really listen to what someone is saying when you are speaking for that person? Once you begin noticing yourself interrupting others, you'll see that this insidious tendency is nothing more than an innocent habit that has become invisible to you. This is good news because it means that all you really have to do is to begin catching yourself when you forget. Remind yourself before a conversation begins, if possible, to be patient and wait. Tell yourself to allow the other person to finish speaking before you take your turn. You'll notice right away how much the interactions with the people in your life will improve as a direct result of this simple act. The people you communicate with will feel much more relaxed around you when they feel heard and listened to. You'll also notice how much more relaxed you will feel when you stop interrupting others. Your heart and pulse rates will slow down, and you'll begin to enjoy your conversations rather than rush through them. This is an easy way to become a more relaxed, loving person. Okay, I've got some legal terms for you, and then I've got a paragraph. You're going to hear illegal, criminal, rightful, robbery, property, the brief for that's PRORT, intention, admission, confession, larceny, denial, voluntary, which I write that as VO, voluntary, and then if it's voluntarily, I would just come back for the LAE or L long E. Possession, ownership, OYP, defense, DEFS, accusation, illegal, and legal's L long EL, so you can just write ill and then come back for L long EL for illegal. Okay, here is your paragraph. Ready? The illegal taking and carrying away of the personal property of another with no intention of returning the property to its rightful owner is called larceny. Robbery is the taking of the property in the presence of its owner with no intention of returning it. Ownership is legal title to property. Possession is the physical control of property. Criminal intent is necessary for a person to be found guilty of a crime. A confession is a voluntary statement offered by a person admitting involvement in a crime. An admission is not a confession. Defense is the denial of the accusation. All right, I've got an article for you, and it's called Never Turn Your Back. Don't fool with Mother Nature. A moment's carelessness can cost you your life. Okay. Here we go. Americans have always had an ambivalent attitude toward the outdoors. The earliest settlers viewed the wilderness as a kind of savage beast that had to be beaten back and subdued. Today, we lap up reports of bear attacks, snake bites, violent weather, and natural disasters. We still fear the forces of nature, I think that much of our fear is misplaced. As a sportsman for 30 plus years and a survivor of some very close scrapes, it is not the wild world I fear, but rather my own temerity. One of my first lessons in humility occurred on the Delaware River when I was a teenager. My companions and I were fishing on a sunny May day from a canoe on a deceptively smooth drift that brought us close to an inviting tree-lined bank. We all grabbed our rods and concentrated on the fish rather than on where the canoe was going. Suddenly, a tree limb appeared at chest level. Instinctively, foolishly, the three of us grabbed for it. The current swept the canoe out from under us, leaving us clinging to the limb, neck deep in icy water. I can still remember how frighteningly powerful the water was, how it tugged and tore at us, trying to break our hold on that tree. We made it to shore, hand over handing the length of the limb. When we found the canoe, it was wrapped around a rock. We needed a block and tackle to pry it free of the river's strong grip. Although I have since made it a practice always to have someone on the oars or a paddle when floating any river in any kind of boat. Lapses in judgment that turn into big trouble can take many other forms. I was once surf casting on Mexico's west coast. The surf was up. It wasn't angry water, just fine. Breaking waves that had lured a school of fish close to shore to feed on the mullet in the wave wash. I was getting nearly a strike per cast and had just lost a big yellowfin corvina that broke off, taking my lure. I was too excited to waste time wading back to shore to tie on a new lure. Instead, I simply turned my back to the surf, clamped my rod butt between my knees, and knotted a new lure to my line right there. The wave that hit me was bigger than any I had seen that afternoon. It slammed me into the sand and rolled me like a rag doll toward the beach. Then it began to drag me seaward as my waders ballooned in the undertow, while the huge wave retreated from the beach. It sucked enough water back to sea so that I could find my footing and stand in thigh-deep water. The weight of the water in my waders anchored my feet to the sand. Once the strong undertow subsided, I managed to go back up onto the beach. Another failure to recognize potential disaster almost cost me my wife. We were hunting for broadbills in the Great South Bay off Long Island, New York, a form of water fowling where you shoot over decoys from a low-profile boat, a scooter anchored well offshore. The best hunting takes place during bitter cold weather when the bays ice up. Pockets of ice-free water open in the mantle of ice, and broadbills are drawn to them like chickens to cracked corn. Because it is such a cold sport, it is customary for one person to man the scooter while the other keeps warm in a nearby car. I'd just done my turn in the rig, and as we changed places in the tender, I told Jen that I would run to town for some hot soup and coffee. It was a sunny, calm day with temperatures in the low 20s. Every sign pointed toward stable ice. But when I returned 10 minutes later, my knees buckled. Inexplicably, the ice had broken loose from the shore and was drifting toward Fire Island, some 4 miles away. The scooter, decoys, and Jen were caught up in its leading edge. Although the scooter was equipped with oars, Jen found that rowing into the ice sheet was impossible. She tried to break ice in front of the bow, then paddle a few feet forward, but the oncoming ice would meet the boat before it made any headway. I jumped into the tender and held my breath. I had no idea if the 5-horse outboard had enough power to break a path to the scooter or enough reserve to get us both back to shore. The motor raced, kicking up a rooster tail of spray. The boat inched forward, the soft salt ice buckling under it. I got a line to the scooter, bid farewell to the decoys, and kissed both the sand and gin when we got ashore. People don't deliberately set out to freeze or drown or slide off steep trails, but things happen all the time. Every autumn there are stories of sportsmen who leave home unprepared for sudden changes in the weather and fall victim to exposure. Every spring and summer, easily avoidable boating accidents claim lives, and fishermen are swept away from a combination of currents and slippery rocks and a moment's carelessness. Does this mean we should fear the outdoors? Of course not. But it does mean we should never fail to respect it. If we always keep in mind the human capacity to get into trouble by failing to think ahead, we will never, through arrogance, turn our backs on nature's awesome potential. Okay, and that concludes our literary and jury charge for the 80 class. Have a great day.